few things in terms of customers' expectations, right? They're obviously continue to rise. They want that 24/7 service. And legacy chatbots don't always cut it when it comes to their expectations. And then also having the ability to continue to provide that self-service capability is also important in terms of their staffing of human agents. So it's even more important to have the ability to do intelligent virtual agents right. Now, when it comes to the benefits that we see customers have is not only providing that 24/7 service, but increasing efficiencies. So you'll see a lot of tasks automated, of course, with XO11. Almost 80% of these interactions that the customers have are automated through the XO platform, which we're very excited about. And it takes a lot of pressure and a lot of cost out of human agents who are much more expensive. And then we also have other total cost reductions that help through these through the benefits that are offered through XO11. Now, how do we do that, right? It's great to talk about those benefits. How does this actually come into real life? So with XO11, as some of you familiar, or as a lot of you familiar, it is a no-code, low-code platform. So some of our competitors are not exactly in that realm. We provide this so that this is business user friendly. So developers and business users alike can use this particular product and collaborate, which is an important part of what we'll talk about today. Also, through XO11, you have your choice of large language models. So you're not going to be locked into one particular LLM. You can use one that you bring yourself. You can use one of the commercially available ones, or one that Kore brings themselves. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then in terms of our XO capabilities, you'll have a lot of other vendors that have bolted on AI, whereas XO11, we are AI native. We're AI first. So we're bringing that sophistication of AI from the foundation of our product. And so I'm going to try to play this video to show a little quick demo of some of our capabilities. Hopefully it works on this format. I'll just do it this way. This will be easier. I'll just show about a minute.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for calling Citibank. How can I help you today?
Can you all hear that?
Yeah, can you help me choose a new credit card? Sure. How do you plan on using the new card?
I travel a lot for work, so flights, hotels, dining expenses, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Do you travel internationally?
Yes, I do. So foreign transaction fees are also important.
All right, so looking through our cards, I think the Global Explorer card sounds like the best fit for you. Some of the highlights are no foreign transaction fees. You get 4 points per dollar spent on travel and dining, and best of all, access to many airport lounges worldwide. How's that sound?
Sounds good, but does it have an annual fee?
Yes, there is an annual fee of $95, which is waived in the first year, but you also get an annual $300 travel credit.
All right, so you get the point of the capability there for what our XR platform provides. I'll get back into the slideshow here. So we can talk all we want about what our capabilities are and how great they are, but what's even better is when we have customers talk about the benefits that they've experienced. And so you'll see 3 great customers here who have benefited from our XO platform. So first off is Frontier, a telco company. They had about 3,000 agents. We saved them about $3.5 million over a year and improved their automation over 6 months for about 40% while reducing their average handle time. You also see another telco, Charter Communications, saved them about $140 million over 3 years with a 90% improvement over their cross-sell and upsell capabilities. So obviously a big help for their particular situation. Again, reduced their average handle time. And then finally, Citi, they have about 3 100 million customer interactions globally, annually. So lots and lots of volume. We reduced we helped increase the revenue over 380 million over 5 years, and about 90% improvement in their containment rate. And the containment rates, of course, are super important. I'm sure that's important to a lot of you. So, and then, as you can guess, we improved their average handle time there too. So, it's lots of good customer representation of how they benefited from the XO platform. And just in terms of not just specific cases with these customers, but overall what we've seen, as I mentioned earlier, 80% of customer inquiries automated. We've seen about almost 40% of customer wait time reduced, 95% of self-service containment achieved, and then about 25% improvement in customer satisfaction. So you can see what we've seen in aggregate, a lot of what customers have benefited from the XO platform. Now, unification. How many of you are using multiple core products by raise of hands? More than one, let me put it that way. Great, yeah. So, and you've had to, in the past, go to different logins, different URLs and interfaces to go across these products. Well now, with XO 11, you don't have to do that anymore. We're very excited to announce this unification of the platform. And so as we think about, in general, what Kore.ai does is we bring conversational AI and generative AI together to be able to provide these benefits in terms of enhanced understanding, higher accuracy, and improved efficiency. That's what Kore.ai does at a high level. Now, when it comes to our individual products, we have automation AI, which is our intelligent virtual assistant builder. We've got search AI, which helps with search capabilities. Contact center, agent AI, which helps with human agents, and then insights. So as you see, there's lots of our various products that we have, and we're happy to bring them all under one interface. So as you see, when you get into XO 11, you'll see this brand new home screen. And instead of creating bots, now you create apps. And you'll see from the beginning, each of those products that I mentioned earlier, from automation to contact center to search. And so it's from your opening screen, you'll understand Kore.ai has multiple products that can help you in your specific situation. Now, when you go into individual products, we also have this app switcher here at the top left with this colored grid. You'll see that you'll be able to not only navigate within the product, whether if you're at the time in automation or in search, you can always switch between apps through this particular product switcher. So when you're accessing it, you'll get this drop-down menu to show the different pieces of the XO platform. So whether it's automation, search, agent AI, or contact center, which is always available to you within the platform. So you don't have to go log in somewhere else. You don't have to try to wonder where it's at. It's always available to you to be able to help you in whatever kind of solution you're looking for. Now, here's a quick video demo of what it will look like when you're going through it. So as you can see here, again, home screen shows you right off the bat all the different capabilities, all of our apps. And those are the specific, as I mentioned, you can create apps within the platform. So those are the particular ones in this case the person made. Then you're in automation. You see all the pieces of that module here on the left panel. And then also you'll see the settings pieces and the other products, campaigns within the platform as well. And then this is where you go to the app switcher at the top. Click it, drops this menu down. This is where you can go across each of the products here. So again, no longer having to log in and out for different products, which is a great benefit, I believe. And then as you can see here is once you're even in the particular app, whether in this particular instance is Contact Center AI, you have the ability to go through and see the other apps for specific situations that you've created. So that's the general idea of the new app switcher in the unified interface. So also, what you'll immediately notice in X11 is an improved dialog builder. So the first thing you'll see here is nodes now can be grouped. So in these green sections here, nodes can actually be organized together in particular topics, so they're grouped together. You'll have that ability to have a little more organization in the way you're creating your dialogues. Also, capabilities for bookmarking and commenting, just to, again, make this more collaborative and more organized. So now we're going to get into generative AI. And of course, again, super exciting capability within the XO platform. Now, I want to talk to you about it in two different ways. First, what are the benefits and the features that come from generative AI within the XO platform? So one is faster bot development. So you'll see here there's different features that enable that, that help to create bots, your developers to be able to create bots faster. Second thing is human-like dialogue. So when your customers are talking with your bots, it doesn't seem as stiff. It's more of an actual, seems like a human conversation. So things from summarization to more empathetic responses. And then you also have improved agent quality and productivity. So there's playbooks and coaching for human agents. So they'll get information to help them along the way when they're interacting with customers. So they're not just doing it on their own, but they have a right hand to give them suggestions on customer interactions. And then it also generates intelligent insights. So you'll get insights on the conversations that you're having with your customers through the platform. Now, to get all these benefits, we have this framework that generative AI is built off of within the platform, just so that we are able to explain how it is this works on the back end. So we have a few pieces to this. And I know there's a lot of text on here, but I'll just boil it down for you in these 4 areas. First is our model library. And Santosh is going to go into a bit of this. But it's the ability to basically choose your own type of large language model, so you're not stuck into one singular option. So you can use a commercially available one. You can bring your own model if you have one, or you can use XOGPT Core's fine-tuned model for conversational use cases, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Then you also have prompt engineering. So you've got a library of prompts. So you don't have to think about every prompt that you want to use for your customers. Second piece about that is prompt fine-tuning and testing. So obviously you're going to want to be able to tweak your prompts. You'll be able to do that through this interface, but also test it. So before you even deploy it to your customers, you can test and see how it works. And then finally, prompt versioning. You want to iterate across time and as you get more experience with your customers. You have guardrails. So we know that PII and making sure that customer information is kept private is super important. And so we want to let you all know that with this, we have that ability to help anonymize PI and sensitive information. And then we have enterprise content filtering rules. So to be able to make sure you don't have bias or toxicity, we help with that as well. And then fact checking. You don't want your responses to be off the wall or hallucinating. And so while we can't guarantee 100%, this framework helps to do fact checking to help customers understand where information is coming from. Then you have monitoring, performance analytics and usage analytics, and then advanced RAG, retrieval augmented generation. We're able to take information that's not directly from the language model, that comes from your business specific assets, whether it's PDFs or connected to a CRM system, and you're able to augment the language model with our RAG capability. So now I'm going to turn it over to Santosh to talk a little bit more about this.
Thank you, Josh.
Just give us 1 second.
Just give us like 1 second. A few other slides, right? There are a few other slides, right? I shared another one this morning. Do you have it by any chance? Yeah. This is a different slide, though. G-chat. One second.
Is this?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Version control, right?
Okay. Thank you, Josh. Am I audible? Yeah. So what we'll now do is look at how does the XO platform help you build human-like conversations, right? Now, you all have been experimenting with generative AI for different use cases. Like individually, you might be using ChatGPT for something, and even at your company, you might be using Gen AI for something. But how do you take them to production? Like I think the analyst from Gartner was telling yesterday, there's so many issues that you would encounter while you deploy generative AI for production. First is the latencies that you will have with Gen AI. Usually the models take around 5 to 10 seconds to respond. Then you have the cost problems because all of these are expensive models to use, and especially when you have millions of conversations happening, each session having around 10 requests, obviously you cannot afford to use something like OpenAI for every conversation. And the third one is about the accuracy of the models, right? There's no guarantee that the model will always give you the right answer every time. So, and the fourth one, obviously, about the data privacy, like are you okay to send all of your data to models? To address all of these your concerns, the XO platform provides you 4 different ways to make sure that you can confidently deploy generative AI applications to production. So the first one is model orchestration. The whole idea is instead of using a large model, why don't you use a series of small models, each of it doing a different function? For example, instead of directly doing a ChatGPT kind of an interface for conducting a conversation, you break it down into different parts. Just for the dialogue response rephrasing, you could use a model. For entity identification, you could use model. For intent, you can use another model. So you break down your conversation session, identify different tasks, and for each of the tasks, use a small model. So what would happen is all of the problems that I said before, latency, cost, data privacy, you would be able to handle them better with this approach. So to allow you to do orchestration of the models, platform provides you pre-built integrations with a model of your choice, or you can bring your own model hosted by you or any fine-tuned model that you have, or you can also use the Kore.ai XOGPT models. Now, like Josh said, once you bring in these models, in the previous world, NLP training was the most important aspect. Whenever you have an ML model, you need to have data science people who can train the model. Similarly, with the generative AI models, you need people who can write prompts because the prompt design is absolutely essential. While some of the models support 16K and 32K windows, the larger the prompt, the more problematic with respect to the hallucination. So you have to be very clear about what prompts are being written. So the prompts are the new age NLP training. So you need to have those skill set ready in your enterprise. Then we have the XOGPT models. This is one of the greatest advantage I believe what all of our customers are going to get. The idea here is again, instead of we expecting all of our customer to go fine tune the models, we have done that for you. We looked at all of the use cases. For each of these use cases, we evaluated multiple models, fine tuned them, evaluated them, and we made them available for you. These are all available as part of the platform. You can start using it as part of the XO11 version. Then we have the advanced RAG capability. Now, RAG is one of the most common use cases of the generative AI application. The idea here is you can bring any kind of data, you can use the enrichment pipeline, and then you can also have advanced RAG functionality like role-based access control. I mean, if you have attended the previous session, we did go deep into the search AI application. That's what the advanced RAG is about. Then we have the observability. Now, in the previous world, whenever you had the NLP performing, you used to look at intent identified, intent not identified type scenario. But when you have the generative AI models coming into play, how do you evaluate the performance of the model? So there's no right answer to it, and there's no right way to do it. Each enterprise has to evaluate the needs that they have, look at the tasks for which they are using the generative AI, identify the criteria that you would like to use. So, for example, someone might be more interested on the accuracy, someone must be interested in the cohesiveness of the answer, correctness of the answer, or the clarity of the answer. So pick what is right for you, then you create the framework around how to measure the model and deploy into the platform. So this is how you could orchestrate multiple models. This is an example where you're trying to do retrieval augmented generation. Like we're trying to use 3 models here. When the user input comes in, first we do contextual rephrasing of the query so that it has better context and expanded context in it. For that, we can use one model, maybe a fine-tuned XOGPT model. So once you retrieve the right chunks, then you give it to another large model to generate the answer. So first, you use a model to rephrase, you use another module to retrieve the chunks, and then you use a third module to synthesize the answer. So for each of these use cases, like I said, you can use a series of small models to orchestrate and generate the response. So in the XO platform, this is how you could pick and choose the models of your choice. So these are all of the features available: answer generation, response rephrasing, GenAI node, GenAI prompt. For each of it, you can choose what model would you like to use. As we see, in some cases, I have used OpenAI models. In other cases, I have used my own custom model, and I can also use XOGPT model. And when you use a model, you can also create a prompt of your choice, test and verify that it is working as expected, and then you can go to production. Then we come to the XOGPT framework. Now, while you can orchestrate these models, it may not be advisable to go to a large model for every use case. Like we discussed, the 4 problems that we have: cost, privacy, accuracy, and the latencies. So that's where the XOGPT models come into play. So there are 4 areas where we are building the XOGPT models. One, obviously, the Copilot, where we make it much more easier for the conversation designers, bot developers to build the virtual assistants. Second, it's for your end users, where they can get much more human-like conversations. So that's another area where we are fine-tuning. Third one is for your contact center agents, where whenever a conversation comes to them, we can automatically summarize the conversation for them. Or when they write a response, we could make it more empathetic, contextual, so that agents can review and send it to the user. So that's the third scenario. And the fourth is for analytics. So very soon we're going to come up with a quality management module in our contact center platform. So a lot of insights on what is happening inside your contact center can be powered through these XOGPT models. So this is the typical process that we follow for fine-tuning. So first is obviously the most important step is about creating your data set. Right? So this involves 2 data sets. One is the data that you would like to test, and the second is the data set that you would like to train with. So you create that data set. That's one of the most important aspects. The second is which module would you like to fine-tune. So there are hundreds of models. I mean, you will see new models coming up every day. These are all small models, community models. The good part is the open source community is very vibrant. I strongly advise you to follow some of these popular blogs to get to know what are these small models that are coming up. Each of these models is built for a specific task. So when you go through the documentation, you know what is a model good for. So you pick a model, you have your data, then you have the model. Then you go through the fine-tuning process. Obviously, there are multiple ways of fine-tuning. You have to choose the right model. And once you fine-tune, you have to create your evaluation framework. How do you measure the responses from the model? You look at them. If required, you fine-tune the prompt, or if required, you add more data to your fine-tuning, and once you are happy, you go deploy. Now, this is something that we have followed for all of the XOGPT models. Now, the advantage is, if you are planning to fine-tune a model for any of your use cases, you now have the Gale platform that gives you all of the tooling required, again, a no-code builder to bring in your data, fine-tune, evaluate, and deploy for your use cases. This is another example or a proof why we suggest using the XOGPT models. I think if you were part of the yesterday's session, you would have seen these graphs. So what we have done is, we took the GPT-4 model, one of the most robust model out there today. Then we took an open source model, and then we took a fine-tuned version of that open source model. So we have three variations: the GPT model, open source vanilla model, and a fine-tuned model. Then we kind of gave it the same task, same test data, and then we looked at the performance of it. As we can see on the left, on all four criteria of evaluation, adherence to the context, response toxicity, factual correctness, and answering from the context. On all of these criteria, the fine-tuned models perform at the same level as a GPT-4 model, right? So it's like, I think there was a good example today morning, right? You don't need a large model to do everything because you're doing very small tasks. So you just need a smaller model which is fine-tuned for it. So you will get similar accuracies as compared to GPT-4 model. Now, the good part is when you look at the right side, on an average, the GPT-4 models takes anywhere between 3 to 4 seconds, right, depending on the task and the size of the context. Whereas the fine-tuned model takes a sub-second. So especially if you're trying to deploy your virtual assistant on voice, obviously anything like 3 or 4 seconds just to get a response from the model wouldn't help for your voice conversations. So that's where you go employ your XGPT models. You'll get sub-second response for all of your use cases. So this is a quick demonstration. I'll quickly go through it of the power of XOGPT. There's no voice on it. I'll just. Okay, so this is a sample example. I think customer is trying to say that customer has lost the credit card. So user says, I lost my wallet in an accident and I would like to block my card. Now, as a conversation designer, I would not be able to anticipate all possible reasons why someone is asking to block a card, right? So I would go and write a sample message, sure, I can help you blocking your credit card. This is a good design. I mean, this is the design that we all do today, which is fine, there's nothing wrong. But there's no response to the fact that user said that he met with an accident, right? So there's no empathy in it. But if you and I, if we were to listen, if one of our friends comes to us and says that, we present an empathy to them. But with the virtual assistant, that had always been a problem because the responses are all pre-created or predefined. Now it just continues. So the flow continues. Nothing wrong with the flow. It's a good conversation design. Then what I did was I went ahead and I enabled the XOGPT model. So in the X11, you have the XOGPT model. You can go enable these models for you. It's a one-click option. You just enable, they're ready for you. So I came back to my dialog, and I went to these nodes, and I started enabling the response rephrasing. Right? So from this point, whenever a conversation happens, we take the input, then we give it a model, and we use a contextual rephrasing of it. Okay, so I tried the same. I tried the same example again with the same use case. Now the user says again, I met with an accident and I would like to block my credit card. Right? Yeah. So now what happens now is when this input is given, we send it to a model. So the NLP is done. And the predefined response, sure, I can help you in blocking card. So now that goes to the model rephrases, and it says, I'm sorry to hear about your lost wallet. Now this is where the models will start helping you. So it's not a complete shift of the way you're doing things. You can continue to do the things as you are doing, but you can employ XOGPT models to make them much more human-like. Now all of this is part of within the platform. No data is going outside. You don't have to worry about any of the problems that I was explaining in the beginning. Right. The other advantage you have is, like we always said, even when we had our traditional NLP, you had the NLP analysis that helped you understand how the model performs. Even with the new LLMs, in your debug console, you can see what was the original input that was given to the model and what was the rephrased input. So you're always in control of what is happening, and you can get a complete log of the model responses. Right. So this is another example of XOGPT. Again, the bot is asking to enter the expiration date. User says, I'm in a hurry. Again, it's March 25. A traditional NLP would take March 25. It'll accept the input. It'll go forward. But again, with the ExoGPT, it says, I understand you are in a hurry. Please take a moment. So these are the small nuances that you could easily add to your current conversation designs to make them human-like. Okay. I think some of you might have already been part of the previous session. May I know like how many of them are attending this session but not the previous session? Okay, I'll not spend much time because we kind of covered it here. So there are 2 or 3 things that I would like to differentiate. RAG, the retrieval augmented generation, is being done by many people in many companies and many competitors of us doing. The good part of RAG is it's very simple to understand. You bring your data, you vectorize them, input comes in, you identify the chunks, present the answer. That's the easy part of it. But the challenge comes in when you have to deploy it for enterprise needs. So I'll give a few examples where you will start having a trouble. Let's assume you have a PDF document, okay? And the title of the document is credit card FAQs. Right? Like someone has published an FAQs of credit card product. And one of the questions is, what are the charges? And the answer is, okay, the charges are 2%, 3%. And when you chunk the document, the title, which says credit card FAQs, is not going to be part of this chunk, right? The chunk only has what are the charges, because when you're reading the document, you know the title, you know the question. As humans, we understand the correlation. But when you split the document into smaller chunks, each of these chunks will not have the context of the document, right? Then you need a way to enrich the content so that each of the chunk is self-sufficient. So that's where the workbench module will come into play, right? You go through the workbench, you enrich the data, you eliminate the junk, and you clean up the data for you. So cleaning up the data is the most important aspect. So that's the workbench feature. Now the second one is the access controls, right? So all of you might have some enterprise content management system, SharePoint, Google Drive, somewhere all of your content is put in. Now the RAG applications are smart. You can dump any kind of data and they'll answer. But like say I have uploaded my payslip to my SharePoint or my Google Drive. It doesn't mean that you should be able to access and get information out of it, right? So you need to have a way of applying access controls of which user is going to get access or answers from what documents. So that's the RACL framework. So then you have the basic RAG, then you have advanced RAG. So workbench is one such scenario where you're enriching the content. Role-based access controls is another. Now the third one is business rules. Who can access what kind of data? One is based on the access control, and second is based on the relevancy, right? So if I'm asking a question, like say we do have some of the airline customers. Now the question was, can I take pets with me? Now each airline has a different policy. Again, depending on the segment that you're traveling from, there are different rules. Depending on your class of travel, there is different question. Now, without all of this context, the RAG may not be able to give you the right answer because it will again shows up 10 different documents saying that, hey, go read up these documents. But if you can enrich the context and pass as the business rules, hey, if the user is in business class and if he's traveling from A to B, then this is the policy for carrying pets with them. And there are also rules that differ based on the type of pet, whether the pet is vaccinated, not vaccinated, all of that, right? So that is how you can enrich the user context to get the right information. So these are some of the aspects that differentiate a basic RAG functionality from advanced RAG. So whenever you come across a RAG, these are the things that you should keep in mind. The basic RAG implementation is super easy, pretty much easy for anybody to do. But when you have to deploy for enterprise, ability to clean up the data using a workbench, applying business rules, applying access controls, these are all the challenges that you would face. And another interesting aspect is the caching of the responses. When you start sending every request to LLMs, there are 2 problems to it, other than the 4 that I explained. One is the cost, right? So when you especially try to deploy it for end user or consumer facing and you have hundreds of visitors coming onto your website, you don't want to spend so much in calling OpenAI for every query. So what if we can create a local copy of the answer? For example, I asked, what are the charges for credit cards? And like Josh also asked the same question, why do you need to go to model again? Because it's the same question, the answer will be pretty much same. So what we do is, whenever there's a question that is answered from the model, and if the user has given a thumbs up saying that, hey, this is a good answer, we create a local copy of it. And when someone else asks the similar question, we first look at the local copy to see if there is a relevant answer, and then we show it to the user, right? This sounds fancy, but again, there are problems here. Let's take the same example. Let's say I am okay, I'll take the same example of what are the charges for credit card using, right? I might be having a credit card, which is like silver credit card, and Josh might be having a platinum credit card. Now, we can't show the same answer to them, but both of us asked the same question, what are the charges for credit card? So even for caching, you need to have the capability to understand if the user input is same and if the user context is same. Only then you should be able to use the local cache. Now, in case of this other scenario, I might have asked the question today, but Josh is asking the question tomorrow, but overnight your content has updated, right? The compliance team said that, hey, you know what, change this response from A to B. Now you cannot reuse the same local copy. So whenever content is refreshed, you need to clean up your cache as well. So these are all the things that differentiate a basic RAG from a search AI application that gives you all of the advanced RAG capabilities. The next part is this is the last point in the presentation is about observability. All of this is good. We have the model orchestration, we have the XOGPT models, we have the RAG capability. Now, what will make you comfortable today? You have to go deploy generative AI, let's say for your consumer applications, right? So this is tricky. You still don't know whether the models are going to perform as you expect them to perform. So that's where the observability will come in. So there are three things that we do here. One, which is basic and sanity, which is anonymization of the PII data. So whenever the user input comes in, if it has a sensitive information or PII, we redact it before sending it to the model, and the model response comes in, we do the reverse of it and present it to the user. So that's the basic sanity. Now the second one is guardrails. Now guardrails is again a very subjective term. What is a guardrail? I mean, toxicity, racism, biases, these are all subjective from one person to another. So what we have done is we have used fine-tuned models to identify any kind of biases or toxicity in the responses. So again, whenever we send a request to the model or a response comes from the model, it goes through all of these guardrails and then the response goes to the user. And now the challenge with the guardrails is while the open source community is definitely helping good models, there's also a large number of people who are trying to come up with various prompt injection scenarios to abuse the models, right? Let's say you have put a chatbot on your website and someone is trying to play around with it and trying to create some toxic content of your website. So it directly impacts your brand. So how do you again prevent such things? So one of the guardrails we also have is a prompt injection guardrail. So before we send a request to model, we make sure that there's no harmful prompt in it. We remove it and then only send it to the model. The other important aspect is we being a platform, we continue to add more and more guardrails every time. It is similar to your antivirus software. Today, you might be using some kind of antivirus software. You keep getting daily updates, right? So whenever they detect a new threat, they give a new patch. Guardrails is similar thing for you. Guardrails is your antivirus software for LLMs. So we keep coming up with more models. We keep addressing all of these gaps as part of every release. So here are the guardrails in the XO11. So you have the PII layer. You could enable it. And you have guardrails for toxicity, prompt injection, and filtering of responses. You can also create your own guardrails by defining what would you like to verify in the model. So this is another example how the PII obfuscation works. Oops. So for one of these nodes, I have enabled response rephrasing. I'm using Azure OpenAI. So whenever the request comes in, it goes to OpenAI for rephrasing. So when we try interacting with the model, I think the use case is about increasing credit card limit. User says, I would like to increase the limit on my credit card, and it will ask for the user to provide the last 4-digit number. Now, what happens is when you sometimes ask for the 4-digit credit card number, user might actually give the entire credit card number, right? You don't have a control on what the user provides. Like, so this is a scenario where user is given the full number. And what happens now is, before sending it to the model, we apply the PII, we kind of anonymize, and only then the request is sent to the model. So that way, nothing goes to the model, everything is within your environment. The next one is the model observability. Similar to your current NLP rules, like intent identification, task execution, with the model, you can also see the performance of the model across different criteria, correctness, cohesiveness, completeness. You can see that analytics in the platform. You also have the detailed logs of each request that was made. From an audit perspective, you can always go back and see what are the requests that you have sent to the models and what was the response that has come. So I think we did cover the roadmap. Yesterday's sessions will also circulate the slides. We have 2 more minutes. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Okay.
Over here. Yes.
Yes, the model, functional model emission is a guardrail. Is that the XOGPT or different model?
Fine-tuned XOGPT model? No, that.
Sorry, the question is, for the guardrails model that you are talking about, is that the XOGPT model or if there is a different model?
No, it's a fine-tuned XOGPT model
Functional XOGPT specifically
for guardrail.
guardrail.
Yeah.
So is that for the guardrail, I see several features. Is that one model does all of the tasks, or is it like a different? Sorry.
Is it
So
one model?
Functional XOGPT model to does all of the.
No.
No, so we are calling, when we are calling it XOGPT, it's not a single model. So it could be multiple smaller models. So we have a smaller model which is specifically for guardrails. Because when you are applying guardrails, again, the response is already generated. You want to apply the guardrails, so it has to be also faster. Right? So you don't want to increase the model size. So we have a separate model for that. It comes under the suite of XOGPT.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much for joining our session. Thank you, Santosh.
Thank you.
Josh.